Well, this is the question. I would suggest that many of the young people in England today maybe are not quite so prepared for the global future as they should be. And over the last 2 years or so, I've been conducting research with employers, with cultural partners, with universities and with young people to find out exactly what it is that does prepare you for a global future. Now, being a linguist, you can imagine that I am going to be suggesting that languages play an exceptionally important part into developing the attributes you need. But not just languages. And what our research has shown is that by learning another language, you gain insights into another culture. And it's that cultural agility that you need and the global mindset, the international outlook, which prepare young people for what will be a challenging and very competitive future facing them. And the changes that have come about are largely driven by the fact that employers at all levels and in all occupations recruit globally. So you're going to be, at any stage, you're going to be competing with international peers. And we need to understand that as English speakers, if you approach that competition with only English and only an English lens through which to elaborate, you are restricting yourselves. So what I'm suggesting is that for every learner, whether they're in school or in university, they should consider learning another language. Too many do not. And that by so doing, they are really grasping the challenges which face them of a global future. I suppose the question that most young people would ask me is why in a world where most people, 1 in 4 I believe, according to the current research, already speak English, so it's become very much the language of personal adoption of many people around the world, and I guess the 3 out of 4 that remain are seeking or aspiring to learn English, why is there a need for the person who already starts with a global language to learn other languages? And what I'm suggesting is that we become the value-added recruit if we are able to show that we do have that versatility, that cultural agility, that flexibility, and it develops a whole range of transversal skills so that we are resilient if you have learned another language. We have the ability to see the world from multiple perspectives. So the challenges we face require fresh solutions. And by encouraging young people to see the world through another language, to develop that greater cultural competence, they can offer those fresh perspectives. And they can begin to see and develop fresh solutions for some of the intractable situations that we face nowadays. And the world has dramatically changed. We are rarely going to be in a situation where our colleagues are all from one culture, even if they share the common language of English in most cases. So we do need to see the world from multiple perspectives. I think also there is this notion, if you like, of marketing, the great global market. Well, as everybody speaks English, we can market everything in English. Well, there is news here. Once you have a presence on the internet, you could be dealing with consumers from anywhere in the world that has an internet connection. So you automatically become an inadvertent exporter to many different countries in many different geographies across the world. So you are going to be, even with telesales, at some point dealing with people whose English is not as secure. And you're also going to need to know, how do they think? What are their cultural norms? What are their consumer behaviours? What do we need to do to really meet not just the language demands, but the cultural expectations of all of the different consumers in the markets we serve? So the more you can have that flexibility, the better you will be and the more successful you will be at exporting. I believe the Treasurer has set us a target of 1 trillion for export sales by 2020, that's annual figures. Now, how are we going to achieve that? Will languages play a part? I would suggest that they do. And they do in all kinds of different ways. And it is about understanding the market you serve that really is crucial if we're going to extend into newer markets and compete with competitors who already have international English. And this leads me to another area, effective communication. Because you share a common language, it does not necessarily mean that you have a common understanding. And if you have only spent your life communicating in one language, you are unaware of nuance. You are unaware that the jokes which are terribly amusing to you are completely unintelligible to your audience and to your consumers, to your clients. You're unaware that metaphor doesn't necessarily travel. So all of those skills and attributes can be developed and fostered in the language classroom. And that's whether you're in school, whether you're in university, or whether you are in employment and going through, well, one would say and one would hope, an enjoyable experience of extending your language skills in whichever occupation you happen to fulfill. Of course, in a hyper-connected world, I think it would be wrong in any way to suggest that English is not an extremely important language. It is an asset. And it is a pansophic language. It spreads universal research and allows international students access to research all across the world. I think that's terribly important. But it's also important to read research in different languages. And I think the multilingual researcher is someone who is deeply undervalued at the moment and should be valued more. Similarly, journalists who have different languages and cultures are terribly, terribly important and should be valued more. And I know that the BBC is encouraging international journalists to have more than one language. It's extremely important in these very difficult situations and crises across the world, humanitarian crises, that a journalist can at least have some of the language of the people that they're talking to in very sensitive situations.